This is Coach, and you're listening to the Film Survivor Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Film Survivor Podcast. I'm your Survivor Examiner, Tom Santilli. If you aren't already, you can follow my weekly episode preview articles every Wednesday morning, my full episode recaps and analysis every Wednesday night, and my exclusive one-on-one exit interviews with the contestant voted out each week every Thursday. To find my Survivor coverage, the best is just to follow me on Twitter, @Tom Santilli, or you can try Googling me, Survivor Examiner Tom Santilli. My name, by the way, spelled Tomsantilli. Or you can also Google the Film Survivor blog. As he does each season, I'm joined today by my guest Gordon Holmes of XfinityTV.com. He's one of the top Survivor columnists out there. He's also the co-founder of the Survivor Hall of Fame, and whose Survivor Power Rankings can be found on XfinityTV.com, along with his episode recaps and interviews. Gordon was a part of the exclusive group of press that was actually present out in Cambodia during the first 3 days of filming of the current season. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Gordon Holmes. Yeah, so Gordon, thank you for joining me today once again here for a season podcast.
Yes, always a pleasure.
First off, congratulations are in order, though. I know that you recently got married.
That's true. It will be 1 month tomorrow, our 1 month anniversary, which I know is a very important one. So I don't know if we have to eat old cake, or I don't know how it works. There's 5,000 different superstitions or traditions that I'm not familiar with, but we have a day to figure it out.
Well, that's fantastic, man. And congrats on that front. I know too that for the months leading up to the wedding, you were posting some pretty interesting and funny, bachelor party ideas. Do you mind if I ask what you ended up going with? Anything crazy?
Well, actually, my father was the best man, and health-wise, he's really not up to planning any kind of event. So one of my groomsmen stepped up, and what he came up with was we were going to play paintball during the day, and then we were going to some hotel where they were actually going to do a roast, like a comedy roast.
Sweet.
But in the days leading up to it, they got worried that if I took a paintball to the face somehow, that my then fiance would murder all of them, which is absolutely the case. So we did golf instead, because that seemed safer. But then we got attacked by bees, so I ended up with very swollen ankles. So we ended up doing golf, and then we did a roast, which everybody was very concerned that would be the end of the friendship at some point. So they kept it clean. We had a lot of fun. Some adult beverages were consumed, but
Sure.
Overall it was a great time.
Well, fantastic, man. Yeah, well, that's good to hear. I've been married now a couple years, and it's great. But yeah, you get through 1 month at a time. That's the way to start it off.
We're almost there.
All right, man. So, well, for people that usually know, like, I don't podcast a ton. Usually when I do, it's with you. And I try to check in with you before the beginning of every season. And we usually do like a season preview. And you've been out there before, but this year I thought it would be cool, especially because it's the second chancers, and we kind of already know a lot of the contestants this year since we've seen them play before. So that's why we're checking in with you here now after the first episode is aired. But I know you were out there for the first 3 days. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, cool. So before we get into your experiences out there and kind of what your take was from being there firsthand, let's go back to the very beginning. The whole idea of a fan-selected cast. What was your take when you heard that they were planning on doing that?
Oh, I love the idea of it, but I think my concern was, we do the Survivor Hall of Fame here, and it seems like there's a real recency bias where you have, someone like John Cochran is already inducted, but Rudy isn't, and Colby isn't, and some of these like larger names from Survivor Past aren't involved. So I was really concerned that your Kelly Wigglesworths and your Andrew Savages were going to end up on the outside while 40 people from Cagayan were voted back on.
Right.
So I was really excited when the vote came out, and a lot of those old schoolers got that second chance.
When were you surprised at all with? I know because a lot of times people like us who cover the show a lot of times we're always talking like, man, I wish they would bring back this person. I wish they'd bring back this person. Who was not on the list of? Was there anybody that you can think of that was not on the list of finalists that you were maybe surprised didn't get a second chance this first time around?
Well, you know how I have my patented horrific memory, so I'm going to just look up this name.
Sure.
From Survivor Micronesia, I think she was fourth out. I'm sorry, fourth to the end. Excuse me.
Okay.
What is her name?
Is that Natalie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always liked her just because she kind of seemed to embrace the villain role, where a lot of people don't. I
Right.
think Jim Rice was one that I was dying to like. He was one of mine. They will never invite this person back because he didn't do very much on his initial season. So to see this was really exciting for me.
Sure.
Apparently, Probst had said that one of the producers holds him in the highest regard. So
Okay.
He's somebody who, based on his first season, not such a big deal, but given the opportunity, I think he could be something special.
And then so then they picked the vote. They kind of shorthanded the other cast who was just having their reunion show, but that was a really exciting thing when he was going around picking the cast. I know a lot of the big talk, immediately afterward was Shane Powers. Everybody was totally blindsided by the fact that he wasn't included. Did you share that sentiment, or what did you think by the people that did get picked versus who didn't?
Oh, absolutely. Because like I had said before, I was really worried about recency bias. So I expected your Jeff Varners, your Kimmy Kappenbergs, I expected them to have a really tough time.
Mm-hmm.
So when we started rattling off those names, I got excited because Shane is definitely somebody that I would love to see come back. So for of all, Terry Deep and Andrew Savage, like the hardcore fans, for years have been talking about those guys. So for them to get it and Shane didn't, I think it really kind of blew everybody's mind. I think people kind of thought Shane was going to be a shoot, and so when that didn't happen, everybody was, including myself, pretty shocked.
Right. Okay, so the cast gets selected. Describe your experience now. Like when you normally go out there, at what point do you kind of know the concept or the theme, or are you learning it like when you're on the beach there the first day?
Well, usually, with the exception of maybe Blood versus Water, they told us 5 minutes before they came out on the beach because there was 5,000 twists, and Jeff took us aside and he was like, "Oh yeah, this is what's happening," and then he rattled off the 5,000 things that's about to happen.
Okay.
Probably to remind himself because there was so much to it.
Right.
But we get out there and then we tend to have a meal with Jeff will sit down with us and go over what they call the creative for the season. So we knew it was going to start off with 2 tribes and going to the boat and trying to get the rice and some other things we're not allowed to talk about just yet.
Sure.
So yeah, we have a pretty good idea once we get there. We didn't know the tribe breakdown though until literally they pulled up in those 4 boats.
Sure. Now, obviously they do an amazing job of covering the show, but paint a picture when you're there, like how far away are you guys from the action? Are you guys just off camera, or how close are you to what's happening on screen?
Well, when they cut away to a helicopter shot,
mm-hmm.
and there's nothing there but Jeff and the contestants. I believe that shot is done either before or after because we were on a a man-made barge, kind of like a standing platform, maybe 20 yards away from where Probst's boat was.
Okay.
So we had a really good view of the entire thing. They do a great, they appreciate it's not cheap to go out there.
Right.
We're out there to get exclusive coverage, especially on this season where all of these contestants had done pre-game interviews, podcast things along. They did press in LA, so I think they really appreciated that. Since we made this effort to come out here, that it's really important that we get this behind-the-scenes stuff, and a big part of that is the marooning. So we were really close.
Now, when you do your pre-game interviews with them, that's prior to the game starting, right? So this is when you're at the boat, you've already talked to all these people one-on-one.
Right. We'll do our one-on-ones maybe a day or 2 in advance. It's never the same
Sure.
because they like to keep the contestants on their toes. They don't want them to know when the game is going to start.
Got it. So when you sit down with them, then a lot of people too talked about with returning players especially. There's always the idea of the pre-game alliance. People are forming alliances even before they were voted on the show. When you're talking to them out there, what was your take in terms of that? Did you feel like there was a lot of that going on?
Well, I asked everybody to a person because it's always nice to have something to compare it with once the game starts. And almost everybody was like, well, if it was an obvious relationship, like, with like Vetus with Terry Deet, because the art connection, he'd be like, well, yeah, we know each other and we've exchanged pleasantries, but, I don't want to promise anybody anything and then have to retract. That was about, of the 20 people we interviewed, that was about 19 of the people, whereas Jeff Varner was like, all right, pull up a seat, dude, because we had a conference call. It was me. It was Wigglesworth. It was Shane. It was Pete. Cat down. Did this, and me and Kelly Wentworth are kind of buddies, but nobody knows. He was the one that really dished. He apparently had been working the pregame to an insane degree. Everybody else was basically like, we'll see how it goes, and blah blah blah. But Jeff was the one that had been pregaming harder than anybody. And that's though was Wigglesworth. She was like, I barely know these people. But then we would do this thing where she had to break down each person individually, and she knew quite a bit about these people she had never seen on TV.
Okay, that's interesting. So then you're okay. Everybody again, has these preconceived notions of these players. We've seen them all play before. You've seen them play. You've talked to some of them before. You sit down to interview them. Who did they all strike you as the person that you thought they were, or who kind of stuck out as like, wow, this person's really in here with a different vibe?
Well, I think when you do this as long as I had, you get a good feel for the person versus the character.
Okay.
The person being the person you would talk to on the street, and the character being what Survivor editing has shown you.
Right.
And Cass and Abby are really good examples of that. Like if you were to ask my mom her opinion on Cass and Abby, she'd be like, those women are evil monsters, blah, blah, blah. But when you get to talk to them and talk to them one-on-one, like Abby, outside of the game, is one of the sweetest people we'll ever meet. We talked for 20 minutes about my wedding plan.
Oh, wow.
Because she was so excited for me. And Cass, I think Cass, I always get a feel of trepidation from Cass because I think she's a little nervous around press. And that, in her season, they tore apart, and I tore apart as well, but more based on game. I try not to get too personal and base all of my criticisms on their gameplay.
Right. And
I thought the cast didn't do a very good job of keeping the jury on her side, and I stand by that. But she's in one-on-one is a perfectly nice person and someone you enjoy talking to. As far as like, are they that different? No, it's almost like what you see on TV is them maybe with the volume turned up.
Sure.
Yeah, like more of like them under extreme circumstances and them, the editor showing you what they want you to see.
Well, with Cass too is interesting. Probst interviews them, and they put the thing up on CBS.com or whatever. And we've seen like a lot of the question was asked like, who would you want out first? And a lot of the people mentioned Cass, and it's probably all because of her, her previous reputation in the game. So I was going to ask you about that too. Having seen a different side of her, do you think that she has any chance of overcoming those kind of preconceived notions about the whole chaos thing?
Well, I think there's two kinds of people that the jury aren't going to vote for. You've got someone like our secret agent friend, who, he's the jury's going to hate his guts, but you can trust it. Like Boston Rob knew he could control him.
Right, Philip. Yeah.
Whereas Cass, she's going to do what's best for her game, but if she feels slighted, she's capable of anything. And I think that's the fear of siding with her. Like you can side with somebody that people don't like, and that's fine, but you don't want somebody that's unpredictable. Which
right.
Cass, she gave herself the nickname. So I would very much want to partner with somebody like a lot of people were saying Kimmy is very annoying. I would partner with Kimmy in a second. I can deal with annoying. I just want to know that she's not going to blow up or vote like some crazy manner. But like with Cass, if she's rubbing people the wrong way, that's great for my game. But I got to have somebody by my side that when we agree on ABC, she doesn't do X, Y, Z.
Sure. Okay, well, so take me back then. So you interview all these players. I see that you also on your website, Xfinity.com or XfinityTV.com, excuse me. I see that you put up your terrible preseason rank, and those are your words.
Oh, and they are terrible, my friend.
And of course you put in there too that you put out the ranking after having spoken to these people, but before having watched episode 1 or had before the game had started. So you had Jeff Varner ranked number 1 there. Did he?
Yep.
Was that based on? Were you impressed by the fact that he laid it all on the line for you and gave you all that intel of all the alliances and all that, or was there something else about him that made you pick him?
I don't think it's so much the fact that it had all these pregame angles, because I think it's good to have the relationships going in. Again, probably not great to promise something, especially considering he's already turned against that alliance in the very vote. It's something more that has to do with, the term I used was lovable scoundrel, in the sense somebody who can stab you in the back, and yet that it's like if I get bitten, if I'm hanging out with a snake and a snake bites me, that's what a snake does. I can't get too mad at the snake, which is kind of the vibe I get from Jeff, where it's like, if you get stabbed in the back, hey, you knew what it was like getting into this. And I use Boston Rob as an example. I use Tyson O'Toole as an example. And Jeff, just in this season of like these big hulking guys, seems like somebody that if he gets in with the right group and makes the right moves, that he's someone who I think going into a jury against any of these other 19 people is going to have a shot, no matter what kind of chicanery he has to pull to get there. Mm-hmm. Now, again, this happened before the very first episode. This happened after the interviews, before the show started. So going to that first tribal where he's got all the people from his pregame alliance that he wanted. He's got Wigglesworth, he's got Dietz, he's got Vetus, and to have him turn against him, that was what kind of like I if I had known that, I might have made a different winner pick.
Oh, sure.
But here we are.
Well, towards the bottom of your list, again, before the game had began, you have your bottom 6. You have Fishbach, Kimmy, Tasha, Wu, Joe, and Cass. Do any of them stick out to you after watching the first episode as maybe having an upward progression up your ladder?
Well, I had Cass as last, and like I said, like, she's a perfectly delightful person. It's just her reputation is probably going to come back and get her. If there's more twists and whatnot, if there's tribe swaps, if there's any of the 400 that can happen between now and then, she could be like the lesser of many evils and go for quite a while. Tasha's somebody now that it seems like she's in with this, I guess, Alpha Alliance, for lack of a better term. She could do well. Kimmy in pregame was driving everybody nuts. But again, she's like a perfectly nice person. Joe, I don't think Joe's learned the mistakes of his past, because like he was targeted from day 3 in Worlds Apart when he did that tree puzzle. And I even said to him, I'm like, well, what do you like? You put a target on your back on that day with that puzzle because he destroyed it. Are you gonna hang back now? And I don't think I can. I think people appreciate it. And he was the first. He dove in the water to go for the right. He did the pole. And the example I use is whenever there's always going to be a reason to get rid of Joe at every vote, even if his alliance has the numbers, even if no matter what, there's always going to be like, we can't keep Joe around forever because he'll get to the end and win. And all it takes is for the majority to listen to that logic one time.
Right.
So I can't see Joe unless he gets to the merge and then
wins every challenge
in communities.
Exactly.
And then and Steven, you had mentioned Steven is just, well, first of all, he ended up on the worst possible tribe. And they're all, they're afraid of what he's capable of doing. And, he got a rough at it last. They take 3 days of your life and pick out the 2 worst things.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you went from being one of the smartest guys in Survivor history to an idiot. I mean, anybody who knows Steven knows that's absolutely not.
You mean you don't think that he was just wrestling a tree trunk or a tree branch there for 3 days?
I don't think he spent the 3 days wallowing in a mud puddle at an idol or wrestling a lone branch. But Probst has said that there probably will be swaps at some point. So nobody needs to swap more than Steven at this point.
Sure. Yeah, now he's interesting too because all of these players, like in the Survivor community, of fans and stuff like that outside of the game, of course we know about a lot of these players. We talk about players wanting to come back, but very few have kind of gone on to become, Survivor. To use his term, the Survivor know-it-all. He writes for People Magazine. He gives out awards each week. He's kind of positioned himself like a Survivor expert, which he very well is. He's played the game. He played one of the best strategic games probably at that time, especially, getting all the way to the end with JT. But I feel like he might have a lot more to kind of overcome than a lot of these second chancers just because of that out of game kind of persona that he's created. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Like nobody had the Survivor Second Life that Steven did. If Steven didn't have the blog, didn't have the podcast, he was just a guy that did really well in the season, but got destroyed by the more charismatic, the more challenge savvy person like he did. Like he might be okay, but it's hard. Like every Survivor, does post game press with Rob as a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a big part of that. It's interesting. Like that might be an interesting piece later. Is like who was hurt by the second go around? Like
Sure.
Rob's sister was the smartest guy to never win, and then the second go around, it was just too much to overcome. It's not fair that you can't play against a clean slate, but
Sure.
that's what you sign up for when you go in for second chance.
In some ways, that's the Russell Hantz thing too. I mean, as much as people love to hate him or love to love him, he played the 2 times with nobody knowing really who he was, and the minute people knew who he was, he had no chance of ever competing in Survivor ever again.
Yeah, I actually had this thought a couple minutes ago where I was like, if you're someone like Spencer, and odds are you were getting called back no matter what,
Mm-hmm.
Do you wait for it to be a bigger, like All Stars 2 or Heroes Villains, where you're going to get some of those bigger names out there so that you're not the big name?
Sure.
Spencer's one of the big names, but if they brought back Parvati and Boston Rob and Russell and Rupert and Colby and et cetera, all of a sudden, he's not such a big fish in a small pond anymore.
Sure.
But then again, the show could be canceled tomorrow, so I guess you gotta go when you can.
That's true. Well, God forbid that happens, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But okay, so take me back now to just you're there. How much of the first 3 days are you actually a part of the game? Like, are you actually like witnessing things that are going on at camp, things like that?
Well, we're there for the marooning.
Okay.
Up until they get their rights and go about their merry way, and then we visit each individual camp for about an hour. Sometimes you see strategy. In the early seasons, I would never see strategy, but now I almost always see it, which is, I guess, probably speaks to either how ninja-like I am now or how fast the game moves. Like, I was able to witness some strategy talk at both camps this time. Then we go to the immunity challenge, which is the third day, and then we sit through the entire 2-hour tribal council process.
So yeah, that immunity challenge now. So you guys, of course, being cued into the fact that how they're playing with the idols this year, and they're hiding them at the challenge. What was that like to watch Kelly and her debate with looking back and when should I grab it or should I grab it at all? Like, what was that whole thing like?
Well, we were privy to the whole thing. We knew Kelly had an idol. We knew she was wearing shorts as a way to transport said idol, because that's one of the first things. Once we heard about this twist, Parvati was like, what about the girls who are wearing bikinis? Where are they possibly going to put an idol? She was smart enough to wear shorts. We knew she had the clue. We were watching her. We knew where it was. We were watching her the entire time, and you could see it on her face. Like that was not an editing trick. Like she did not care about that pole and that key. She was fixated on that idol. And then once all the commotion started with with them going through, she snuck back, got it, and then gave like a visible whew, like you could absolutely. It was very dramatic.
Sure.
But we were watching her like a hawk, and like we run the test challenges while we're there, and we did a similar thing where Dalton Ross was actually his idea to do this with the idols. They gave him a clue as to where it was, and in my brain, I'm like, watch Dalton like a hawk, and if you can get to the idol first, get it, and then that'll be hilarious. The second, and like I knew this, that, Kelly's tribe had no idea there would be an idol at a challenge, and why would they? It never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
But the second pro says Survivor's ready, go. All thought of watching Dalton left my brain.
Sure.
All I was thinking was win this challenge.
Right.
So it really is amazing how once you're in that competitive frame of mind, all that matters is, getting the job done. So this twist is great. And yeah, Kelly pulled off like a champ. yeah, I love it. It was great.
I think that this twist is awesome too, but what I love about Survivor is that the players continuously adapt and get smarter. You know, when Russell found an idol without a clue, that became like a new thing. Everybody searches for an idol without a clue now, but before that, you never did, you know, without a clue. The fact that this is brand new is awesome right now. But let's say the game progresses and Kelly, you know, tells somebody, hey, you know, there's idols being hit at the challenge, or you know, this is where I found it, or she shares it with an alliance member, and now people are aware of that. How do you think that it's going to change the game? I also thought about it from a production point of view. You know, you can't kind of, you know, tip your cap or tip your hand a little bit to where the idol is being held, or where it's hidden. I mean, you know, like you can't have a camera guy, you know, sitting on a specific spot to give it away.
Right.
So I guess how do you think that that could develop or evolve?
Well, worst case scenario is next season, or I guess the next season after this one, that they already filmed what will be 32.
Mm-hmm.
Is if, you know, Probst is like, Survivor was ready to go, and everybody just starts digging around looking for idols. Now, my understanding is an idol is only put out if a clue is found. So if Kelly hadn't found that idol, hadn't found that clue, there wouldn't have been an idol stuck in there. So if you went to the Pink tribe, and I can't remember the names, Bayon, and looked where Kelly's idol was on their side, there wouldn't be anything there. It's a one and done kind of thing, and you've only got the one chance to do it. If Kelly didn't get it at this challenge, then that clue would have been worthless going forward. So yeah, like I think it's like anything where I guess they have to be careful when to do it, when not to do it. If it keeps them on their toes, which is good, because, you know, anytime you got your super fans, your Shireens, your Spencers, your Stevens, they know what's going on this day we do that, and on that day we do this.
Yep.
So anything that keeps them, anything that surprises them seems like a winner in my book.
And it hasn't played out yet, but I'm sure it will. Also, the other twist with the idols, how they're making them look different from one another, which will hopefully kind of create some drama and maybe create some people playing some fake idols and creating fake idols and that sort of thing. That should really play out great, I would think.
That's just mean. Is that mean? How upset would you be if I came up to you during the game and I was like, good news, look what I found, and then I bring to you, you know, like a pebble. You're like, oh man, not only does he not have an idol, but he thinks I'm an idiot by handing it to me.
Well, first I would be flattered that you would want to align with me and would show me your idol. But yes, then my next thought would be, yeah, what an idiot.
That'll be the great joke, is if somebody finds it and then just assumes that somebody else on the tribe had put it there and just throws it away.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Because, I mean, we've seen people get burnt by fake idols and laughed off the show, like Randy, for example.
Yeah. I guess what you got to do is just be like, I don't think this is an idol, Jeff, but, you know, I'm going home anyway. And then he's like, yes, this rock is an idol.
Yes, don't get all cocky about it. Put your chest out and act like you're doing something dramatic, or you will get laughed off the show. All right, cool. So then let's get to Tribal Council now. So then you like a lot of people know, but maybe some don't. You know, like you mentioned, Tribal Council actually goes on for a couple hours. What we see on TV is, you know, highly edited down. So what was your takeaway from Tribal Council, and especially kind of versus how it was aired on television? Was there anything that you were surprised that they didn't include, or like, I guess, what was your take on how it was shown versus what you experienced?
Well, to be honest, it was one of the more boring Tribal Councils I've ever attended. And if you remember, they sent them to Tribal immediately after the challenge. So there was no opportunity for them to go home. Anybody thought just go back to the camp, scramble to get their ducks in a row. So everybody was kind of weirdly trying to figure each other out. Wu at one point was literally like, I do not know who to vote for, like, you know, looking over at his alliance. And then the one thing that was like, Shireen had this odd, like, laughing fit where she just lost it at one point. I don't remember what set her off. It was so bizarre. And then Probst, when he was like, "You're laughing, you could be the one going home," and then like silence out of Shireen. There wasn't like a continuing narrative as there is. Like, we knew Abby was in trouble, we knew Vetus was in trouble, but it was just like really weird and awkward. And then at one point, Varner, like right as we're going to vote, Varner's like, hey, Jeff, can I ask a question? And Cross is like, have at it. Like, Jeff never wants them to go without having something not said.
Right.
So he's like, go for it. He literally turns to PG and he says, are you and Kelly voting the way you told me you were going to vote when we were in the water? And she said, yes. And then he's like, okay, I'm good. And then Dietz goes like, I don't know what just happened. Jeff just dropped the Varner bomb. Like, there was just like all manner of confusion to the point where, like, knowing what we knew based on the pregame, I assumed that Dietz, Vetus, and Kelly Wigglesworth were a pretty solid alliance. It seemed like they had brought Wu in, so I was wondering if there was going to be a 5-on-5 tie, and that's why Jeff Varner did that last-second scrambling. But I haven't actually told anybody this yet. When I was at camp, when I was at Takeo, it was basically just Weed Fest 2015, just everybody weaving these palm fronds. And then Steven and PG go to check tree mail. So I managed to, like, weasel my way behind the camera crew that was following them, and then they were just dishing about how Abby Maria and PG had this big fight over this bracelet, which we then found out about, that, Spencer was tight with Shireen, PG was tight with Kelly, and they wanted Abby to fit, but PG didn't trust Abby because of the bracelet, and that Vetus and Jeff both thought that Varner would side with the women no matter what. It was like just none of it really made sense, and made less sense, like, just because it seemed like Varner had put all that work into the pregame alliance to turn against them.
Yeah.
It didn't make any sense to me. So once the vote went down and Vetus was out, it was just like a real, like, I even said to Jeff, like literally, like, Probst afterwards, I was like, all right, help me out. What just happened? And he didn't have a great understanding of it either. It's probably one of the most confusing, because normally it's a unanimous vote or close to unanimous.
Yeah.
We just had no grasp of what had just happened.
So, I mean, I guess we'll find out next week what Jeff was thinking, what Varner was thinking, but it sounds to me like from some of his interviews that it was maybe he just got caught up in the game. Maybe he's so excited to be out there, he just feels like he needs to be making big moves like from the get-go. I'm not really sure how else to say it. What do you I guess, gather with that move if you had to pull something out of it? Do you think he's in big trouble now?
The only thing I don't know if big trouble is the right word, but like it really to vote. I even said, is this some kind of Kaiser Soze move where he doesn't want people to think he's with Terry and Kelly, and that's why he voted against them on the first vote, which seems like second level Survivor playing. But like, yeah, it just for somebody who pre-gamed so hard to come out of the box and
very
his
strange.
edit made it look like a chicken with its head cut off.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't buy it. Like he just seems. I guess the only thing I could think of was that he was very concerned of a 5-5 split. That he would have Terry, Kelly, Vetus, and Wu, and then it would go 5-5, and then go to Rocks, and then who knows what would happen. So I don't know if it's hopeless to get rid of Vetus, but it seems like the factions are, Kelly and Terry, Wu by himself, Abby by herself, Shireen with Spencer, and PG with Kelly. So it doesn't seem like there's like one solid alliance with we've got 6 and we're good. Like it seems like they're all broken up.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on my power rankings for this week and have no idea where to put any of these people. and add to that, they just voted off one of their strongest challenge competitors.
Right.
Like just a total disaster in that first vote.
So yeah, you just mentioned it. That was going to be my next question. Tell me about your power rankings this year. And I know you just said that, but I mean, come on, that's pretty much what you do every week, right? You have no idea where to put people. You just kind of dartboard it, throw some names up there.
Last season we broke it out to 3 people with Josh and Reed, which was a mistake. It's formatting it is a nightmare. But I was such a big fan of the Worlds Apart cast, and I really wanted to include as many people as possible. 3 seems like the limit. So I got Jen Brown, who I think is hilarious. And
cool.
Max Dawson, who he knows the game better than anybody. So it's me going head to head with those 2, and hopefully we'll have the first full version of it Tuesday. What is today?
Today is Monday, the 28th.
Yeah, hoping to have the first version of it up tomorrow, Tuesday the 29th. And we'll see how it goes because they, those 2 know the show. So, fingers crossed.
Fantastic. How did you fare against Josh and Reed?
I won. I beat them both. I tried to make it so the loser would pay for the winner's wedding. They were getting married as well, but they didn't go for it. I actually have a pretty solid power ranking streak going. For as bad as I am at picking winners, I've won the last several power rankings. For the immunity challenges, I've won 8 in a row there.
Wow.
Basically, I'm getting a big head. It's time for somebody to put me in my place. So hopefully either Jen or Max or maybe both can put me.
We will note that you created the format and the rules and the scoring and how it all works. But yeah, you've won 8 in a row, but that's good. That's still good.
Actually, it was a team effort between me and Charlie Herschel.
Okay.
For Survivor Talk Machines, the first power rankings, and we figured it out ourselves, and he won that one, so he's to blame.
Well, that's cool, and they can look for that on, you said Tuesday, and then every week pretty much throughout the rest of the season there, right?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Well, I always like to ask you, too, before we wrap up here, just about the Survivor Hall of Fame. Usually that's when people start hearing about it is during the fall season, as we get closer to the end of the season. Any plans with the Survivor Hall of Fame this time around? What's going on there? I'm
really going to make an effort to blow up the executive branch. I've reached out to a lot of people in the Survivor press. I've always kind of wanted to dilute that voice, and adding more people to it seems to be the way to go. Tom, of course, you have been a wonderful voting member. I hope you will continue in that capacity.
Cool.
But we're hoping to, each season when there's 3 more people to vote and all that helps as well. So that I don't know if there's any big changes in store.
So last year, I know you guys went for the Hall of Fame tribal councils. Are you going to go back to the format of choosing players?
Yeah, like last year, I had some personal issues with a health issue with my father, and I didn't really wasn't going to be able to dedicate the time because it is a ridiculously pain in the ass undertaking. But he's doing well.
It's great to hear.
I don't see any I'm just married now. Like, how much time can that take out of my life?
Yeah, nothing will change. Nothing will change at all, I'm sure.
Right. That's what I hear is once you get married, your life is totally the same. That'll.
It's a whole different podcast.
I'm hoping to go back to business as usual for the Survivor Hall of Fame.
Well, very cool, Gordon. As always, it's a pleasure checking in with you and getting your take. Thank you for all of the behind-the-scenes insight and looks at this season. Anything that you'd like to leave us with as far as what we can look forward to the rest of this season, or any other further predictions that you'd like to nail to your reputation?
Oh, geez, that just seems like trouble. You can always follow me on Twitter at Gordon Holmes. Also, I have an Instagram where I just post behind-the-scenes photos. I had this mega ton of behind-the-scenes photos from dating back to Gabon that I'd never done anything with, and I just decided to put them on Instagram, and that's actually Gordon W. Holmes. So that's where you can find me there.
All right, man. Well, again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to the rest of the season and maybe checking in with you before season 32.
Sounds good.